252. So the thing going on here with 238, once you get there, you're going to have to understand what we're doing here. So I'll let you get there first. So it's this is the day, and if any of you grew up in Sunday school, you know the drill. It's this is the day that the Lord hath made, that the Lord. So we're going to do right and left here. We're going to start here on my right hand. We'll start there. That's the first, and then the response is going to be the left. I will try and face. This is going to be coordinated. We're going to try our best. This is our first attempt at such an endeavor. So, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, yeah, so I completely missed it. I've already blown it. All right, so. This is the day. Let's sing through that a couple times. Jesus is the rock of my salvation. His banner over me is love. Jesus is the rock of my salvation. His banner over me is love. Jesus is the rock of my salvation. His banner over me is love. His banner over me is love. Jesus is the rock of my salvation. His banner over me is love. Jesus is the rock of my salvation. His banner over me is love. Jesus is the rock of my salvation. His banner over me is love. His banner over me is love. You may be seated.
All right, young people can be dismissed this morning. If you're in here, go to Psalm 69. It'll be our starting place. Looking back, we'll be picking up where we left off last week in the biblical fasting. Been talking about prayer a little while here, off and on, and thought this would be a good direction to go in the area of fasting. We've looked at several different aspects of it, benefits health-wise, and there's intermittent fasting is a way that people are losing weight now and all that kind of stuff. And then we looked at some biblical fasting, and then the purpose we got into at the end of last week, Luke chapter 12, the purpose of biblical fasting, and remind you of a couple things. St. Augustine said fasting cleanses the soul, raises the mind, and subjects one flesh to the spirit, and renders the heart contrite and humble, scatters the clouds of concupiscence, quenches the fire of lust, and kindles the true light of chastity. What fasting does is it removes you in some way from your flesh and helps you focus on the spiritual. If you're honest, your flesh has way too much control each and every day. We don't live enough in the Spirit. We live too much in our flesh. And I don't know if anybody else has this issue, but I'm a stress eater, right? And what I've discovered in my stress eating is never salads, right? You gotta call me out in front of everybody? That's your thing? Oh. It's also mine. But if I'm stressed during the day and I'm near a store or a gas station, it's typically a bag or 6 of candy. And I'm not talking the little ones. There's no reason to buy those, right? Right, what do you know, you go to Meijer or Walmart or Kroger and you get the big bag. Sharing size, that's not even big enough. You got to go with the bigger one of the Sour Patch Kids. And just so you know, it's possible to eat those, not saying that I have. It's possible to eat those in one day. Just saying. It's possible if you wanted it, It has been attempted. And I'm never going to tell you whether I was successful, but it has been attempted. So the purpose of biblical fasting, we looked at seeking repentance and mourning and seeking godly wisdom, and then seeking spiritual deliverance. Here in Psalm chapter 69, we'll start in verse number 1. It says, "Save me, O Lord, for the waters are come unto my soul. I sink in deep mire where there is no standing. I come into deep waters where the floods overflow me. I am weary of crying, my throat is dried, mine eyes fail while I wait for my God." You understand the first 2 verses. David's just painting you a picture. He's not in water, right? He's not drowning literally in water. But verse 3 gives you where it's coming from. It's coming from a place where it feels that way. It's coming from a place where he's broken. And you ever get to the place where you're just like, "Lord, I'm really done. I was done yesterday," right? That's where David's at. "They that hate me without a cause are more than the hairs of mine head. They that would destroy me, being mine enemies wrongfully, are mighty. Then I restored that which I took not away. O God, thou knowest my foolishness, and my sins are not hid from thee." That's key, right? Just because you're in a place and maybe you're the one accepting the ridicule, you're still sinful, right? Don't get to the place where you're never wrong. Don't get to the place where you're not sinful. It's not a biblical stance. And it's not going to draw you close to God at all. "Let them not wait on thee," verse 6, "O Lord of hosts, be ashamed for my sake. Let not those that seek thee be confounded for my sake, O God of Israel. Because for thy sake I have borne reproach. Shame hath covered my face. I am become a stranger unto my brethren and an alien unto my mother's children. For the zeal of thine house hath eaten me up." Who is that? Who did we just say right there in that phrase? Who's that talking about? That's Jesus Christ. "The zeal of his house hath eaten him up. And thine reproaches of them that reproached thee are fallen upon me. While I wept and chastened my soul with" what? Fasting. "That was to my reproach. I made sackcloth also my garment. I became a proverb to them. They that sit at the gate speak against me, and I was a song of the drunkards. But as for me, my prayer unto thee, O Lord, my prayer is unto thee, O Lord, in an acceptable time. O God, in the multitude of thy mercy, hear me, and in the truth of thy salvation." So here we have seeking intimacy with God. David is in a place where he's hurting. He's expressing that longing and that desire for the presence of God in a deeper relationship. He's looking for answers. He's looking for deliverance. And so he says down here in verse 10, "When I wept and chastened my soul with fasting." Verse 11, "I made sackcloth also my garment." And so he put himself in a place where he had removed all of the luxuries, everything that was nice and fine, and he was now chastening himself and drawing himself away from everything. Why? He wanted that close, intimate relationship with God. Don't be afraid of the word intimacy, right? Our world has taken words and put them only in one context. No, you need an intimate, close relationship with God. And the Psalms are so good because David will give you example after example of how you're supposed to talk to God. Talking and smoke and mirrors with God is no help. He already knows, right? He's already well aware of where you're at. He knows the hairs that are or aren't on your head. Raised with family this week, so that's, that was my only shot at the bald joke, so he's not here. So he knows all of that, but here's what's good for you and I to say it out loud. Because we can keep things inside of us and never tell anybody and pretend they're not real. Don't pretend that you don't feel that way. If you feel that way, deal with it. And for the men in the room, you do have feelings. They are real. They do exist. Don't be controlled by them. Control them. Right? And David is a great example of God. I'm in deep mire. I'm in deep water. And so what does he do? He goes to fasting and prayer. He doesn't sit and feel, he's not feeling sorry for himself. He's not wallowing in self-pity. Right? There's a quote from the Grinch. He's not doing that. What's he doing? He's just being honest in the throne room of God, and then physically on this earth, he's removing everything to show God that he's serious about this relationship that we have. And in these moments, God, I need you. I need to know that your presence is here. I need to see that you're working. And God is not a genie in the bottle where I can sit here as a Christian and just rub it and get everything magically that I want. We feel that way, but it is not that way at all. A man by the name of Ole Halsby, he was an old Norwegian Lutheran theologian. He spent 2 years, 1943 to 1945, in the Oslo concentration camp. And yes, they did exist, opposed to modern history. Here's what he said about the purpose of fasting. The purpose of fasting is to loosen, to some degree, the ties which bind us to the world of material things and our surroundings as a whole, in order that we may concentrate all our spiritual powers upon the unseen and eternal things. If we're not careful, we live for this. And this is all we ever see. And so what fasting does is it removes me. Listen, when you don't eat, your flesh thinks it's going to die. Right? We're so spoiled. And so what fasting does, and listen, probably for most of us, one meal's not going to do it. Right? If I'm working during the day, I can get up, and with the busyness in our house, I can not do breakfast, and I can drive and get to work. I can blow through lunch and just work because I need to get this done and just focus and go. But by the time I get to 4 o'clock, there's a voice inside of me that's going, hey, we have forgotten a portion of the day. And when I get there, then my flesh is like, and if you don't give us food in like 3.2 seconds, we're going to die over here, right? And so what fasting does is it puts me in a place where I'm dependent on him, and I'm drawing strength, which I should be doing anyway. It should be an automatic part of my day. And what happens with this is we get too tied. As he said, we get too tied to the material world. And maybe it's not food that you're fasting from. And I know there's no young people in here necessarily, but maybe you need to put your dumb phone down for a day. Maybe you need to not turn your TV on for 2 days. Maybe it would do you good not to know what's going on in the world for 3 days. It could do you some good. Because most of what you see, you're not doing anything with it anyway. I'm not making a change with it anyway, and we collect stuff and we worry about stuff and all this. Oh, stop. If it's going to affect your world, it's going to affect your world. In one day last week, gas prices went up and came down and went back up 50 cents. Did anybody else notice that? When I went to work, it was one price. Came through another time of the day, it was another price. Went back through in the evening, it was a total different price. I'm like, what are we doing? Someone's doing gas prices with a yo-yo, right? They're just like, woohoo! I can't do anything about it. You know what? When I pull up, you know what I'm going to pay? Whatever that is, right? I'm not going to go in and yell at the people. They don't have control over that, So we let those things, we get too tied to that stuff. And what fasting does, and when we're in moments like David is in Psalm 69, what that fasting does, what prayer does, is it removes all of those things. And it helps me focus on what is the most important thing, those unseen, those eternal things. Eternity, heaven is coming. And my stance before God is going to be real. And I will give an account of all the things that I've done in this life. I will give an account of those idle words and what I've wasted time on. God doesn't care that Notre Dame didn't make the college football playoffs. Right? He's not concerned. Who concerns themselves with those things? We do. Right? God's not deciding what 2026 is going to be, whether Michigan can find another deceitful coach to coach their program. Right? Say, why would you say that? Well, right now, we're 2 for 2. Right? Those are the problems. And here's what we know. We know that at minimum the AD needs to go, and probably a bunch of other people, but because the world is corrupt, none of them are leaving. So what do I do with that information? Oh, I look at it, I read it, I watch a video or two, and then I move on with my day. Why? Because they don't know that I exist. Right? And if I were to send an email up to the University of Michigan with my opinion, they're not even going to read it. An intern is going to get it and delete it and move on with their day. Right? But we get so tied with those things that we forget eternity is real. The unseen is still going on. There's spiritual battles going on right now. And we lose grip on those things, and that intimate relationship with God is important for if only this, helping me to refocus on what is actually real. What actually matters. Go to Psalm chapter 35. Here is biblical fasting will give me that seeking that intimacy with God, but it's also this, it's seeking humility. Psalm chapter 35, go to verse 11. Psalm 35. Here David once again is pouring out his heart to the Lord, and we'll pick up in the middle of it in verse number 11, because I want to bring some things out to you that will be helpful, I believe, in how we live our life. Psalm 35, verse 11. False witnesses did rise up. They laid to my charge things that I knew not. They rewarded me evil for good, to the spoiling of my soul. But as for me, when they were sick, okay? So he's been taking it from them, correct? So now he's going to give you what he does when they're sick, when they're down. But as for me, when they were sick, my clothing was what? Sackcloth. I humbled my soul with what? Fasting. And my prayer returned into mine own bosom. I behaved myself as though he had been my friend or my brother. His actions, verse 11 and 12, had proven he was neither his friend or his brother, correct? But David didn't handle himself that way. I bowed down heavily as one that mourneth for his mother. But in mine adversity, what did they do? They rejoiced and gathered themselves together. Yea, the abjects gathered themselves together against me, and I knew it not. They did tear me and ceased not. With hypocritical mockers in feast, they gnashed upon me with their teeth. David said, for me, here's what I did. I went to prayer and to fasting and sackcloth, and I did that to humble myself. Fasting will put me in a place of humility. And if I'm going to serve God, I'm going to have people that are against me. I'm going to have people that are going to say things against me. And it is never my job. Vengeance is whose? Mine, God says. Vengeance is mine. I will repay. Listen, it's way better for God to serve the vengeance than you and I. We're going to do little trifle things that don't matter. We're going to feel better for a minute. But for the long run, let God deal with that. Let God be the one that passes those things out. You know what you ought to do when your enemy is down? You ought to pray and fast for him. Boy, that's against the world's thinking, isn't it? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. David said, I went to fasting. Why? Because I'm trying to seek after humility. God, don't let me, in my mind, get into a place that I shouldn't be in. So it's not only seeking that intimate relationship with God, it's not only wisdom and deliverance and all those things, but it's when I'm in those moments where maybe some things don't make sense and maybe I'm being attacked. Fasting and prayer will help me be humble because it will connect me with God and it will help me think like He thinks. Imagine this. Imagine if the world was run by your thoughts. Yeah, you and I are on the same page right there. That's a scary thought. That's bad. Adam and Eve would have been gone, right? At minimum, Eve, right? As soon as she ate the fruit, boom, you're gone. I'd have just nuked the whole, but that's not God. Here's how I know God doesn't work that way. You're still here. I'm still here. So I'm glad the world isn't run by my thoughts. And here's what David's saying. God, all these things are against me. They're wrong. I'm actually in the right. But I'm going to do my best to humble myself and to pray for them and to lift them up, even if they never say a good or positive thing about me. That's my job as a child of God. Now, that's difficult because I'm still human. And if I have the choice of treating you kindly or punching you in the face, I'm choosing punching you in the face, right? That's me. That's my flesh. I'd rather just drop you, right? Move out of the way. But God says, nope. That's not how you're supposed to treat him. Jesus was as a lamb and he opened not his mouth. That's your example. Your example is your Savior who could have, but he didn't. He humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. Fasting helps me in my humility. Why? Are we really that humble? I don't know about you, I'm one of the most humble people you'll ever meet. Right? Like that's as far as our humility goes, correct? It's useful when it's useful. Beyond that, pretty sure today's about me. Right? Say, how do you know that? Do you drive? Right? That explains everything. If you drive, you know the world is about that person. Right? Say, how do you know? Change the lane without a turn signal. Get out in front of them. If you're not at a stoplight, if you're not ready for the drag race that's about to happen, right? I've been honked at, and I'm like, who's behind me? Like, I could name you drivers. Is John Force behind me? Is he ready to go? Because I didn't even get a chance to slide my foot. I'm like, whoa, where are we doing? In a hurry to get anywhere. He said in Psalm 109:24, my knees are weak through fasting, and my flesh faileth of fatness. That'd be a good thing for our American culture, wouldn't it? That our flesh would fail with fatness. Generally not. Here's what Hudson Taylor had to say about a group of Christians that he found in China. In Shanxi, I found Christians who were accustomed to spending time in fasting and prayer. They recognized that this fasting, which so many dislike, which requires faith in God, since it makes one feel weak and poorly, is really a divinely appointed means of grace. Perhaps the greatest hindrance to our work is our own imagined strength, and that's true. Perhaps the greatest hindrance to our work is our own imagined strength, and in fasting, we learn what poor, weak creatures we are, dependent on a meal of meat for a little strength, which we are so apt to lean upon. That was true when he wrote it, and it's true today. I am more dependent on my next meal than I am on God who provides it for me. And he said, I found a group of people. They didn't draw strength from the food they ate. They drew strength from the God they served. Fasting, what does it do? It helps me in seeking humility. Go to Matthew chapter 4. Here's Christ's example of fasting. This is seeking power for ministry or power for serving. The power, the strength for ministry or serving God doesn't come from me. It comes from him. Matthew chapter 4, verse 1. Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. So just so we're clear, God offered him up. Hast thou considered my servant Job? So here's what we do. We put Job on a pedestal way up here, right? If Job was a Christian with us today, he could sit right here amongst us, right? So just consider your own life. How many things in your life could it be, I'm not saying it is, could it be possible that God says, have you considered my servant Josiah? And the devil's like, okay, let's go. And the stuff we struggle with is because God thinks so highly of you. See, he doesn't think that's because we have the wrong opinion of ourselves. He sees you as he sees his son. And here, the Spirit leads him up into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted, how many days? 40 days and 40 nights. I don't recommend. Right? When you get to about what I've talked to guys who've done it, I've met one guy who's done it. I've heard a couple of the guys who've done it. When you get to about day 29, 30, you're pretty much laying in a bed, laying on a couch. You have no strength at all, which, yeah, that makes sense. Right? Your thoughts are really foggy. You know, literally your body's eating itself. All those kinds of things. So there's some supernatural strength here, correct? There's some help from God, but the example is still true. He was afterward and hungered. That's an overstatement, right? Yeah, we miss a meal and we're like, I don't know how I'm going to make it. When the tempter came to him, he said, if thou be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread. So he's going to go after you in your weakest moment for what you need the most, for what you want the most. The devil's not going to tempt you with something you don't want. He's going to tempt you with something that you're tempted with. And for each of us, that's different. But he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Then the devil taketh him up into a holy city, and setteth him on the pinnacle of the temple, and saith to him, if thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down, for it is written, he shall give thee his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. Jesus said unto him, it is written, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. And again the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world, and the glory of them. And he saith unto him, all these things will I give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Then saith Jesus unto him, get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Then the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him. Fasting will give me, now, humanly and physically, this doesn't make sense. Because you eat to fuel your body, right? That's legit. The reason you eat is to give your body fuel. So we don't need as much as we eat, right? We just often overeat. You only need enough for your body to have fuel for the day. That's why we eat. So when I'm fasting, I'm taking the fuel away, but I'm drawing power from God, which is what Jesus Christ did. I'm seeking that power that only comes from him. Luke 22:43, there appeared unto him an angel from heaven, strengthening him. God can give you the strength that you need. You just have to be in a place of humility to receive it. But too many of us are, well, we've got it figured out, don't we? Go to Luke chapter 2. We'll be here today. But I want to give you some verses here in the middle of this chapter. We won't mention these today in the morning service, but they're here and they fit where we are. Luke 2, verse 36. Here is Anna. And there was one Anna, verse 36, a prophetess, the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Aser. She was of great age and lived with an husband 7 years from her virginity, and she was a widow of about 84 years. And I want you to get this thought. Which departed not from the temple, but did what? Served God. Okay, so her Anna's focus was serving God. Oh, okay, so our American Christianity would say this. Well, then what ministry was she involved in? Right? Was she teaching Sunday school class? Was she head of the Sunday school department? Was she playing the piano or the organ? I mean, what was she doing? She had to have been, right? Because that's service, right? No, that's American culture service. Watch how she served God. But served God with fastings and prayers night and day. My service for God is not, I'll throw this word in, necessarily tied to a church. It can be, but it doesn't need to be. I ought to be serving God whether or not I'm serving him at church or not. But what's the issue with fasting and prayers? Unless I'm doing it wrong, no one knows that I'm doing it. And we've moved along so much in our culture that now everything is talked about, everything is praised, everybody is said, listen, I don't need a thank you or a praise for what God's called me to do. He's called me to do it. I'm going to do it whether anybody says anything or not. And here's a lady who spent her life doing something that only God knew she was doing. And God's opinion was that she was serving him in fasting and praying. Imagine the difference you could make in your life, in your family's life, in this church, by doing something that no one would ever know that you ever did. You'd never get talked about. At the end of 30 years, you wouldn't be given a plaque. Right? All those things. Well, I've done this for 35 years, and you just got your reward. Right? Here's a lady, served God her whole life with fasting and prayer. Why? She wanted power from God. She wanted the intimacy with God. She desired a relationship with him. Verse 38, and she, coming in that instant, gave thanks likewise unto the Lord, and spake of him to all that looked for redemption in Jerusalem. Just a simple way of serving God that no one is going to talk about, no one's going to mention, but God knows. And God can use you to do things. Listen, fasting and praying, God can use that to do things that other people will take credit for. If multiple people in this room began fasting and praying over this church, and new people started coming, and people got saved, and the building filled, who gets the praise for that? Let's be honest. Who gets the praise for that? I do. Right? Anybody looking from the outside in, right, is going to say, or call me and say, hey, what are you doing? Right? And my answer would be, I've not a clue. I'm just watching God do something. Right? Which should be the answer. But a lot of times it comes down to, well, see, I've got this system here. You've just stepped over top of what God's doing. And God will use I'll use this term. God will use insignificant people, right? To do great things. That when we get to heaven, we would take Spurgeon and Charles and John Wesley and put them to the front of the line. And God's going to go grab some grandma and bring her all the way to the front of the line. And we all be standing there going, who's that? Well, here's Anna. You know what she did for her life? She just fasted. She just spent time. Mary hath chosen the good part, right? So maybe your serving of God, maybe your ministry is to just fast and pray over what God could do here. And watch God do it. But we'd have to step out of our American culture mentality to do that. My name is not on the sign outside. And that's on purpose. Why? Not about me. It's not. And here's the other part of it. It's not about you. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you're here. But we need Anna's mentality, which is what? I'm going to do something. I'm just going to do my best. I'm going to do what I can. What did Jesus say after she broke the alabaster box? She hath done what she could. Maybe God just needs you to do what you can do. Oh, I'm just waiting for an opportunity. Maybe your opportunity is literally sitting in your lap. And maybe it's just fasting and prayer. Listen, it's not glorious. Really, no one's going to walk up and down your street with a banner, talk about what kind of a great Christian you are, do a Facebook post every week about you and your great spiritual leadership. But God will know. Because that's who I'm connecting with. That's what fasting and prayer is about. It's to draw me closer to God for all those things that we've mentioned. It's to have my life be intertwined more with who He is. Here's some guidelines for fasting. Guidelines for fasting, and we'll be done. Number one, your motive is key. We mentioned this today, but fasting in humility is the key to it and not for public recognition. Go to Matthew chapter 6. Matthew chapter 6, and look at verse 16. Matthew 6:16, he said, moreover, when you fast, be not as the hypocrites of a sad countenance, for they disfigured their faces, that they may appear unto men to fast. Verily I say unto you, they have their what? Reward. But thou, when thou fastest, anoint thy head, wash thy face, that thou appear not unto men to fast, but unto thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth thee in secret shall reward thee openly. Don't do something to draw attention to yourself so that other people will ask, right? Because then you have your reward then. I'm going to read you this in Luke chapter 18. Here is the publican, and him and the Pharisee come to the temple to pray, and here's what the Pharisee says. I said, to God, I thank thee that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. I fast twice in a week. I give tithes of all that I possess, and now you have your reward. If I'm doing it to keep track of doing it, you're doing it wrong, right? If you're nice to your spouse, just so you're banking all the times being nice to your spouse, so that when you get into an argument, not saying that you do argue, but in case you do get into an argument, you can bring up the fact, well, I did these nice things for you 5 times. You're doing it wrong. And you have your reward. So the motive is key. Here's what Daniel said in Daniel 9:3. I set my face unto the Lord God to seek by prayer and supplications with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. That's the heart attitude. I am seeking after God. Combine, number two, not only your motives are key, but combine prayer and God's word together. If I'm praying and fasting, I should have more of God's word than what I generally take in a day's time. However it is that you read it in a day, if I'm praying and fasting, I need more of God in there. Right? Don't prayer and fast and Netflix binge all day. Right? You're going to have the opposite effect. You shouldn't be drinking in more of the world while I'm trying to seek the face of God. That's counterproductive. Determine this, number three, determine to seek wisdom. And that wisdom comes from God. The point of prayer and fasting is to draw myself close to Him so that I can know His heart, so that I can have that direction, so that I can know the path, or maybe get the answer that I need. And listen, it's not the perfect way. It's not the complete answer, because I've fasted and prayed and not gotten an answer. Because there's just some things God's not going to give you an answer about. You just have to accept it and move on. And know that He's sovereign and He's right. And I'll just give you that as the last one, number 4. Don't ignore your body. If you have medical conditions and you have things and you take medicine, you need to be careful. And I've heard some guys just absolutely blister people. Well, you ought to be off all your meds, and you ain't a doctor, bro. Like, you're going to kill somebody. Listen, how I can fast and what I can do, I take some stuff for allergies that I don't even know that I have anymore, but I still take it because I'm used to taking it. But that's about all, and a vitamin every day. Thank God so far that's all I have. So how I can fast is different than someone who's taking things for heart stuff, for blood pressure, if you're taking all that kind of stuff, you have to be really careful of what you're doing and how you're doing it. And so your approach may not be food. It may be something else. But however you do it, it should be driven with humility and with the purpose of connecting with God in an intimate way so that I can see His face and hear His thoughts and know who He is. And example after example after example of people in your Bible who have done that. Daniel chapter 9 is a great example of it. Of someone who just set their face to seek after God. And listen, it may not even be, Daniel was not even for himself. It was for Israel on a whole. And so maybe, listen, there's parents and grandparents in here. It may be that you need to pray and fast for your kids or your grandkids or a niece or a nephew or somebody. That may be who it's for. It may not even be for you. And all of it's okay if it's done in the right way and with the right heart attitude. You will get God's attention. And God will speak. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back at 11.